Connecting sleep to sports isn't easy, but here goes. Mattress Firm is America's neighborhood mattress store, and it should be your goal to check out the deals they have going on every day. Their mattresses are softer than your rival team's defense. They get a 10 out of tennis. You'll love your new bed. Okay, all terrible dad jokes aside, head to mattressfirm.com/podcast and stretch your budget further than a gymnast before a floor routine. All right, whatever you're wearing right now, Mack Weldon is better. Mack Weldon is an essential brand that believes in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. Their website is seamless. It's very easy to go on the site and pick out your favorite pair of underwear, sweats, t-shirts. Typically, when my 1.5-year-old son wakes up at 5:15 in the morning, I get out of my bed in my Mack Weldons. I put on my Mack Weldon t-shirt and my Mack Weldon sweats, and I go to the fridge and get his bottle of milk and then go get him. And we sit there for 30 minutes, me in my Mack Weldon gear and him in his wet, soiled diaper, and we drink his bottle of milk and watch Paw Patrol. Mack Weldon wants you to be comfortable, so if you don't like your first pair, keep it, and they'll still refund you, no questions asked. Go to mackweldon.com and get 20% off using the promo code JJ. Welcome to the JJ Redick podcast, where I interview some of the biggest names in sports and culture, as well as give you an inside look at life in the NBA. Today on the show, Academy Award-nominated director M. Night Shyamalan.
The act of making a basket from 23, 24 feet out, that's not phenomenal. I'm sure if you gave my wife 10 chances, she could make it once, right? That's not what's amazing. It's the mental, the concentration on your emotions and the way you can control your mind. And when you're shooting, you every single time, I can feel it in you. You're practicing your mind. That's what you need to practice, the control over the emotion. So it's not random. That's what you're practicing.
I talk with the filmmaker about viewing basketball through an emotional lens, his creative process, and why NBA players shouldn't wear headphones. That's up next. Hope you enjoy. We've got a great show for you this week. I am a huge fan of M. Night Shyamalan. He has directed a bunch of great films: The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, The Village, the perennially underrated Lady in the Water. I actually loved that movie. And more recently, Split, which was a huge box office success. And it was essentially a sequel to Unbreakable, and now we're getting a third movie in this series, in this universe, Glass, which will be out, I believe, in January 2019. M. Night came and spoke to our team a couple months ago and was just fascinated with how he views things and the way he views basketball through an emotional lens. So let's get to my conversation with M. Night Shyamalan. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. If you had told me like 14 years ago, as a 20-year-old sitting in the theaters watching The Village, that I would one day host the park ranger on my podcast, I would have told you were crazy. This is such a treat for me.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. That's very generous of you.
I met you actually last year when the Clippers played Philadelphia and you were sitting courtside.
Yeah.
It was right around the time Split was coming out, and I came over to you, and I've told you this since, but you know, I'm such a big fan of you and all of your films. Some of my favorite films are your work, and I just really appreciate this.
Oh, well, thank you. I actually remember that. We were actually that night, they were honoring me at the Sixers game. So like everything was about, you know, the movie coming out, and they were showing clips and all that stuff. And a bunch of your teammates came over and said hi, and they were fans. And then you came over, and you were like, this, you were, as now that I know you better, you know, you're very, very, you know, you put together, you hold, you know, you're just, that's the way you play basketball. You're just a very, you know, very sincere, earnest guy, and you came over and you were very distinct. And because I'd always watched you, and I said this to you when I met you. I was like, man, you're an assassin. You just like, you cut people's hearts out, man. It's like you come in and you slice the game emotionally from a different perspective, which we'll talk about. But and then when we signed you, I was like, yes, we got the assassin. So this is very exciting for me too.
You're a Philly guy. Like you were raised in Philly. What has the last couple weeks been like for you as a Philly sports fan? And what does this Eagles championship mean for this city?
Our city and our teams need to be in sync. And when I came to talk to the Sixers, we talked about how we all represent the city and we have to represent it properly. And maybe once upon a time, we were kind of didn't believe in ourselves kind of city and maybe a little rough around the edges, and that was an appropriate collar for us, but that's not the city anymore. The city is vibrant and growing, the number one millennial city in the country, the highest education, everything you can imagine, the best restaurant scene, everything you can imagine, and very diverse, and we believe in ourselves. So our teams need to represent that, and you're starting to see that with our teams. And I think the way the Eagles won, and I said this to Jeff Lurie, I said, it's not that you won, it's how you won. That was amazing. You were resilient. You played the best football player of all time, and he gave the best game of all time, 500 yards of Super Bowl, and still he couldn't beat us. We were that resilient. You're not going to break, Tom, but so you have to come with an incredible amount of confidence in yourself and your teammates that we're going to find a way. And they did that. And that really represents our team. So I'm very excited. And I see it in you guys too on the court now.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be a Philly sports fan, obviously for the Eagles, but there's something happening with our team. We're moving in the right direction, obviously. And with Ben, Markel and Joel building around those guys, it's going to be exciting.
And yourself.
I'm at the end of my career.
Listen, we're going to talk about emotion. That's not a good emotion to throw out there. You're reinventing. This is an amazing time. I love having you out there.
Thank you. Our first, you talked about sort of the identity of the city. In our first team meeting, I remember Brett talking about sort of the old version of Philly, the gritty Philly, and how Philly fans, it's an interesting sports town. Because if you do it right, they will love you and they will embrace you. And if you're not putting forth that sort of maximum effort, or if you shortcut, or if your heart's not in it, they will boo you in a second. Mm-hmm. And as a player in this city, it's sometimes hard to sort of balance those two things. I just had TJ McConnell on the podcast, and I talked about him being sort of an unlikely hero of this process. And we had a triple-double last night.
Yeah, I know, amazing.
And it's amazing to me how much he specifically represents that grit. And I think you saw that with the Eagles too. They just embraced that underdog mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I was telling the coaches that I felt like TJ is your caffeine. when you need some caffeine, throw TJ on the court. And he does represent our city, which is, we talked about this at length when I came and talked to the team about, how does one control one's emotions? And just to kind of step back a second, when I came to talk to the Sixers, I wanted to talk to them solely looking at the game of basketball through an emotional lens, which is basically what I do for a living. I talk to actors through only the conversation of emotion. What is the character feeling? So that's something I've been versed in. My brain has been doing that since a little kid. So when I watch a basketball game, and also I play basketball every week since I was a teenager. So, I understand the emotions of the game. So when I'm watching it, I'm saying, you guys are the best athletes in the world. How much time have you spent thinking about your emotions on the court? When you miss, have you thought about when you miss an open three that the other team tends to score at a higher rate off of that miss, because that's an emotional connection, right? That feels like a gift that they got, right? And then they end up making that shot with a little bit more ease. And oftentimes you feel like you see the missed three, the open three, and then the made three from the other team, right? That's what we see a lot, because that's an emotional connection. Watching the entire game through the lens of emotion is a really interesting thing because you can see what's about to happen before it happens when you watch it. And TJ is this emotional dynamo for however he approaches the game with humility. And he says, I need to give 100% at all times. And so he's a buzzsaw, and he knows he gets under the skin of everybody, and not necessarily in that Rodman kind of way, but in that, Delavadova kind of, why is this guy on me? I'm 3 feet from the end of the court. He's irritating me, just irritating. And it pulls you out of your emotional game. And so he's super valuable. And TJ doesn't fluctuate with the game score, right? So he's always doing that buzzsaw emotional thing, which is a great ballast for you guys. You also are a ballast in that way, emotional ballast. So as the game teeters up and down, you want guys like you guys to anchor emotionally.
Yeah, when you came and spoke to our team, you kind of identified a few guys in the room, and I've been wanting to talk to you about this since you did this 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Because I felt like what you said about Joel was true and really nice. What you said about Ben, which I want to talk to you about, was true and really nice. And then to me, you said in front of the entire organization that I'm at war with myself. And while there is some truth to that, I actually kind of got like defensive about it.
Yeah, no, well, first of all, that's not quite what happened, JJ. The way I was giving
that's what stuck with me.
Yeah, I gave pros and cons for everyone. I gave pros at Joel. I was saying pros and cons, what I was seeing emotionally from everyone. So, and I could talk about some of those, but with you, for example, I was feeling you were so kind of, angry with yourself. This was at the beginning of the year. So I came in and I spoke right around in the middle of that kind of like that losing streak area. And
this was early December.
Yeah. And what you represented at that time was someone who knew what you wanted to be for the team. And when you fell short of that, you were so angry at yourself that you were stuck in that spiral of like castigating yourself on the court and not realizing that you were giving off this kind of vibe at that time. That's what I meant by the war. By the way, since that time, you have locked in, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast. Honestly, I would tell you you're worse now if you were, but you honestly have you've gotten balance in there and as to the role and what you represent and the piece that you represent as the veteran player and the mental, the strength that you have as the outside shooter, which requires incredible amounts of emotional control. And you represent that for the team, and I can feel that coming off of you and off of them now. So it was a momentary thing that I saw when you came here to Philly, that you, the veteran, and all these guys are young bucks, and they're emotionally all over the place, and and what you wanted to play that role, and I felt like you put too much pressure on yourself, and now you kind of it's almost like. And another act of humility. I believe all balance of emotion comes from us being a little bit more humble about what we're capable of and what our position is. And even though we were coming from trying to help everyone, you were hurting because you were putting too much pressure on yourself. And I feel like now, and you had that little injury for a little bit, and then for whatever thing you came out, and the second you walked on the court, you were just more the assassin, that guy that's just, God damn it, it's just effortless. It goes in. And so I'm not just saying, honestly, and by the way, I wasn't picking on you. That's ridiculous.
I don't know. I think it was kind of the consensus afterwards in kind of like a straw poll that I got it probably the worst.
By the way, this is an indicative of the mentality that you were in. The way you were reading that was very I
was coming from a negative place
beating
of
yourself
emotion.
up, beating yourself up. Why did he pick me? Kind of.
No, that's all fair. I agree. That's all fair. It's all fair. And I think too,
Well, what I was saying for the team was looking at each person's emotional state and where are they coming from, and how does that. How can you help thinking about your emotions to help the game, right? So when we're talking about Joel, when I was talking about Joel, and when you post up, like for example, the last game I came to against your old team, the Clippers, right? He was posted up in this one play against Jordan, right? And this is actually something I said to Joel. When I can tell when you're posted up and your mind is on the basket, the ball going through the basket, as opposed to the man that is pounding against you. And on this one particular play, Jordan was just pounding Joel. They were like pounding, and I saw it switch. Like if I have a video, I could show him. The moment he stopped thinking about the ball going through the basket, that's the story of emotion that he's thinking about, to this bastard that's hitting me, right? I'm going to take him. So, and of course, he did the move and the ball didn't go into the basket because his emotional story was between him and DeAndre Jordan. It wasn't about getting the ball. It's a mental thing, right? A mental, emotional thing. And the great finishers are always thinking about that, always thinking about the ball going through the hoop, and all the people in between them and the hoop are part of the story of getting the ball in the hoop. It's an emotional journey, you know? Once you lose your emotional center like that, you miss the end game.
So true. And coming back to what you were saying about me, I think that's what it comes down to, is like finding that center, finding your sort of emotional balance, and then everything kind of filters off of that. One of the things you talked about in this meeting with us is the way our emotions affect everything else. Mm-hmm. So beyond just our own game, our own stats, our own performance, the way it can affect the crowd, the way it can affect the other team, the way it can affect the coaching staff, our own teammates. Yeah. You sit courtside, you sit right by the other team's bench, and basketball is really great because you're up close. You can visually see someone's body language, someone's facial expressions. Give me some examples when you've seen like an emotional either outburst or display that affects the game that most people wouldn't necessarily see.
Well, you know, up close, you can really feel the emotion of how the game is moving and how people react to that energy. Always, for me, we talked about the philosophy of Epictetus, which is a Greek philosopher who kind of said, if I break it down, that there's a group of things that we're in control of, and those are the things we should put all our energy into. And there's a group of things the universe is in charge of, and you should put no energy into those things. And if you put all your energy into those things that you have control over, the universe is a benevolent place, and it will give you more opportunities to grow. You have to believe what I'm saying. So if we break that down into the game of basketball, the refs calls, the things that are not in your control, don't spend your energy on that, but spend your energy on the things you do have control of. Can you go around that pick a little faster? Can you distract your player? We were talking about how much we affect each other, right? When I was talking to the Sixers, emotionally, if I yell at you, right? If I do something negative, I affect two people away from you. You will then go with that. You will take my energy, and then you will go to the coffee shop lady and the barista, and you'll be like, hurry up, and you'll just say a little sharper, or she'll feel it off of you. And really, it's me she's feeling, right? Two away. And on a basketball court, there's only 10 of you. So everyone, even the guys on the offside who are not involved in the play as you throwing the ball into the post to Joel, are affecting 40% of the team. So like if Ben goes to the far side and he's just waiting there casually, and his body and his emotion are saying, I'm not in this play, then he's affecting the guy who's guarding him, who's then affecting the next guy. And so you can see you're all a quilt of emotion. So get around that pick as if the play was run for you, which you do, by the way, which makes everyone's energy go towards you. You affect everyone. You guys are so tight. There's only 5 of you. So we were talking about that. And we were talking about how the emotion of the game. So, for example, I'll give you an example, what you asked for. I spoke to you after the LA game when you guys played Ball and those guys, and we lost that game. And we shouldn't have, and what I was telling you is when they were warming up, I could tell Lorenzo, and I was forgetting who else, was really in a kind of loose state. And then I was watching you guys, and there was a couple of you guys really tight, and literally that's how it played out. It played out exactly that. And to understand the game, the emotion of the game, I also gave an example of when you guys played Boston, and I can hear the players on the visiting side. And Kyrie, I gave this example to the team, which fired everybody up, which was really cool, especially Joel, which was when you guys played Boston, I think this was the first time you played Boston, Kyrie kept on saying to his team, just keep it close, just keep it close, just keep it close, essentially saying, I'll do the rest, right? And that's what he did. In the fourth quarter, you did keep it close, and then he came in the end of the game, and he won the game. And he had a kind of like, and like if we're breaking down what I just said about Epictetus and why Kyrie is a great closer, right? Yeah. It's because he has put the time in, his handles, the way his skills. He believes there's no 1 or 2 guys even in the NBA that can guard him. So he's putting his energy into the things he has control over, which is the dribbling, the movement, concentrating on the finishing, right? And he goes, if I concentrate on that, that ball's going in the hoop. I can feel it coming off of him. So he goes, 2 guys are there, I'm going to split them. If I do this, whatever it is, he's staying on the control rather than panicking and thinking in a kind of a broader way, what if I miss? Or, oh my God, I don't know what, I'm getting cornered. Any of those things, he never goes through his mind. He always concentrates on the great closers have that in the fourth quarter. What's really interesting, and another thing that I was thinking about recently, and I was talking to one of your coaches, was I would bet, and I don't know the stats on this, that the Sixers are the best first quarter team in the NBA, if not the top 2. And I would bet that's the case. And it's because you guys are so loose and having so much fun in the first quarter. You blow everybody out. I mean, it's amazing how well you guys play in the first quarter. Now you're learning to find those moments through the game, and I would bet each quarter gets less and less successful. That would be my guess, having watched the season. And what we're talking about is control of one's emotions. You guys are in such a positive headspace, primarily because it's a very young team, right? And they get hyped, the names are being called, and they get out there and they're having so much fun, and they devastate the other team with their lack of realizing this is supposed to be hard.
Right.
And then as the pressure of the game keeps coming, each quarter starts to more thinking gets involved and more of that. And it deteriorates this control of the emotion that this is fun and easy. And I am great. You guys are the world's best athletes. We're really good at this and we're having fun with each other. It deteriorates as a game. I have seen in this part of the season now, a wonderful change that you guys can recapture that for a moment here, a moment there. And we, so the game through an emotional lens is a fascinating thing.
We are, I think I saw a stat the other day, we are, I think, the best or one of the best first quarter teams. So your observation is definitely spot on. And I also think with a young team, like, we sometimes forget how nuanced the game becomes as it progresses. Every game, there's a tug of war that happens throughout the game. You make a run, the other team makes a run. You can't knock somebody out in the first quarter. It's impossible. Mm. And we're beginning to realize that more and more. I think we've been better in the second half, and we've actually begun to, I think, close out games that maybe 2 or 3 months ago we would have lost.
Totally agree.
Hang tight. We'll have more with Knight after this quick break. Buying tickets can be complicated and confusing, but there's a simpler way to buy with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every type of live event, whether you're catching your favorite musician on tour, shopping for the perfect gift, or searching for a last-minute deal to see your favorite NBA team. SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. Nothing beats being there in person for the biggest plays of the year, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone, and it's by far the easiest way I've found to shop for tickets. I could be anywhere. With just a few taps, I can instantly find seats. I actually just used SeatGeek the other day to buy tickets to a U2 concert this summer in Nashville. SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. SeatGeek saves you time and money by searching multiple ticket sites to compare prices and find amazing deals. And to get you the most bang for your buck, SeatGeek grades every ticket based on value to help you immediately identify the best seats that fit your budget. Plus, every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Make SeatGeek your go-to app for finding the best deals on every type of ticket, from sports and concerts to comedy and theater. And guess what? SeatGeek has a special NBA offer running through All-Star Weekend. First-time purchasers can get $30 off any NBA ticket between now and February 19th. Just use promo code JJPOD, JJPOD, for $30 off any NBA purchase. Not just games between now and February 19th, any game. So even if you've been eyeing an April matchup, you can act now and save $30. That's promo code JJPOD for $30 off NBA tickets. Or just go ahead and use special code JJ for $20 off any first-time purchase. Let's get back to Mattress Firm. Everyone knows how important stretching is before an event. So does Mattress Firm, except it's your dollar. Your budget stretches further when you're shopping at America's neighborhood mattress store. It's a true home run, and you'll have a ball. They're the head coaches when it comes to mattress expertise, but know this, they are more than mattress experts. They have a game plan that helps you transform your mattress into a bed. From adjustable bases and sheets to headboards and bedroom decor, they have you literally and figuratively literally covered up like your favorite cornerback. Shout out Revis Island. Go to mattressfirm.com/podcast to see what deals are happening as I read this sentence to you. They even offer you a 120-night sleep trial to ensure perfection and a 120-night low price guarantee so you know you paid the perfect price. Talk about a 1-2 punch, a knockout, if you will. Score big with the perfect bed. Head to mattressfirm.com/podcast to get the play-by-play on how you can monumentally improve your sleep today, tonight, and tomorrow. And now back to M. Night Shyamalan. I want to talk to you about failure and narrative.
Yeah.
And your career as a filmmaker has sort of two paths that you can sort of describe.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating to me how you think about your career and what that means. So you told us your two stories about your career.
Yeah.
If you could share that with us, that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, I was talking about, how we think about ourselves and the stories we tell ourselves, right? We don't want to have a false sense of ourselves, but you have to know it's a way it's a choice how we look at ourselves. So I was saying in the Sixers, one version of my career is made my first film at 21, became one of the biggest filmmakers in the world at 20. I wrote Sixth Sense at 25, have grossed $3 billion, have made more original films than anyone in the world, have Split became the number one film in the third decade of my career. And I think only one other person's ever done that. And I've been number one in every country in the world. You have that version of the career, and I can go in more detail about that. Or there's the other version, which is my first film failed. Nobody saw it. My second film, which I made for Miramax, failed. Nobody saw it. Your career's over. I got lucky, wrote one script that went and made a movie that went through the roof. The other film did well. Then I went through a slump and nobody wanted to see my movies. I got definitely mocked and made fun of on everywhere you can imagine. People turned and said he's terrible and this and that and forgetting all these things. And there was a moment where, I made a film that I paid for, this is recently, and nobody wanted it. And essentially your career's over, right? And you could tell that's right. And you got lucky again. Is that the story, or is the other one the story of the unprecedented talent? Or is it the lifetime of failures, And they're all true. It's just you have to embrace all sides of yourself. But you, again, thinking in terms of Epictetus, I'll tell you one. I don't know if I told you guys this one. I might have told you this story. So I went, there was this kind of in the moment when things weren't going well. I was feeling like I didn't know. I wasn't in my balance, like we talked about you. I wasn't feeling in the pocket. And I went, I just want to go and have fun again, making movies. So I'm going to go fund my own movie. I'm not going to tell anybody what I'm making. I'm going to go make it. I'm going to mortgage my house and I'm going to go make a movie. So I did, and I made a movie called The Visit. And I started getting nervous again, and I wanted to make sure I was going to be all right. So I showed it to all the studios just a few weeks after shooting it. I had just slapped it together. And every single one of them passed. And basically, career's over at that point, right? Career's over. Maybe your house is gone, Everything's dark. I remember coming home and my daughter, did I tell you this story? My daughter was doing a puzzle.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So she's doing a puzzle, and it's a 1,000-piece puzzle. And I just came back from Los Angeles where everyone passed. And you can imagine what my emotion is. And I sit down and I start doing the puzzle with her. And I'm trying to find this damn piece. And it's one of the first pieces. And I'm like, this is so hard. And I go, but I know there's a picture here. So I'm going to keep looking. And I found the piece, right? It took 10 minutes or whatever. We found it. And I go, and I literally was thinking this, why did I keep going and find the piece? Oh, well, I know there's a picture. I know there's a finite answer to this. And I said, well, look, that's how I'm going to approach this. I don't know. I know there's a picture here. I'm just going to work on what I have control on. So I did the Epictetus thing. The next day, I just went into the editing room and just made the scene that I was working on better. And the next day, I did that again and again and again and again until I was done the movie. And when I was done the movie, I showed it back to Universal, who was the only company that said, we'd love to see it when it's done, just to see it. So I finished the movie, did the things I had control over, showed it to them in a movie theater with screaming fans. They bought it right then, that day. It became the #1 independent movie of that year. Then I made Split with them, which made $300 million, which I also paid for it. Now I'm making Glass, and on and on. And now every day someone calls me to direct a movie for them, every single day, right? And it all came from that one puzzle piece, right? It's all from thinking of it, wow, I'm really freaking powerful. I have all the things I need. I can go and just work on that one scene and make it better. And in that way, we become very, very powerful. So when I was talking to the team, I was trying to think in terms of that, not in terms of, wow, the referee made the bad call. Don't concentrate on that, The ball goes in on a jump shot when you shoot. It doesn't go in. You're watching the ball go into the rim. It's irrelevant. It was decided by you, by the movements of your knees and your elbow being in and your follow through. And you decided that. So if it didn't go in, you were in complete control of the fact that that ball didn't go in. So that kind of empowering kind of thinking about it. I was actually watching you when I came in to talk. I was actually watching you were shooting, and I was watching you through the window. And I was thinking about, and you do this, you're not practicing the muscle memory as much. I wish the guys, I would tell them all this. When you're practicing, you guys are already the world's best athletes. And you've played forever. You've played thousands of hours more than I have played, and I can make a basket. The act of making a basket from 23, 24 feet out, that's not phenomenal. I'm sure if you gave my wife 10 chances, she could make it once, right? That's not what's amazing. It's the concentration on your emotions and the way you can control your mind. And when you're shooting, you every single time, I can feel it in you. You're practicing your mind. That's what you need to practice, the control over the emotion. So it's not random. That's what you're practicing.
I'm feeling myself in the game while I'm shooting in an empty gym. I am. I'm visualizing. I'm sensing that emotion. What is holding me back? Why could I possibly miss this shot? Is it a defender's running at me? Okay, I'm going to change my footwork. So I'm seeing and feeling all these things while I'm doing it. I love that you talk about the puzzle piece, because as an athlete, we obviously go through slumps. And, when you're in a slump and you feel like I can't make a shot, I inevitably just always go back to what I can control. And that goes into the preparation and trying to be emotionally balanced, trying to play with a sort of a clear mind. And those are the things that I always go back to. But I was thinking about this as it relates to a slump. In the NBA, if I have a bad game, Indiana 10 days ago, I was 1 for 8. I played terrible. I had a game 2 days later. And then after that, I had another game 2 days later. And then after that, I had a back-to-back, and then I had another game 2 days later. That's the beauty about the NBA. You get into a slump or you have a bad game, bad shooting night, whatever it may be. There's a quick turnaround, and you can break out of those slumps. When you're making a film, you're going a year, sometimes years in between films. So emotionally, how do you deal? Because for me, I don't feel right. When I have a bad game, I don't feel right until I have a good game.
Yeah.
So for you emotionally, how do you deal with, having a negatively received film and then waiting a year, 2 years, whatever, till you can say, no, motherfuckers, I can do this.
Yeah, I think you're already thinking of it in the wrong. You're thinking of it in the things that the universe has control over already, right? So today, for example, I'm going to finish this. I'm location scouting, and then I'm going to go back in the editing room, and I'm going to work on the 1 or 2 scenes that I'm editing for the movie Glass. I'm going to concentrate just on that. And if I have a great afternoon doing that, that's all that I need to do. And I know everything's going to work out. Then tomorrow morning I'll come in and I will do that same thing again and again. Just concentrate. Don't accept any, being very open about in my particular field, and maybe there's something an analogous for you. What we're scared of is the gap between our talent and what we actually did. And that we're scared of that. So we oftentimes don't want to look at that gap or face it, but craft can close that gap. But you have to face the gap, right? And go, wow, my tastes are this. I know what I want, but I didn't achieve that. And how do we close it? And so when I'm looking at the scene, to be completely honest, wow, that cut to JJ was it's a little aggressive. I don't want to go to the shot of JJ yet. I want to, oh, I know what to do. I'm going to save his close up until XYZ. Those kind of choices.
Yeah.
Or wow, I remember there was a take where JJ was very quiet. Actually, you know what? This take, I'm going to show his anger through absolute stillness on this one, and I'm going to let him do the anger 7 scenes from now. Those answers come to you like a chess master after you really understand the language of what you're dealing with. So you can just like you are able to compartmentalize and go, you don't have control over the whole season, JJ. You don't have control over the whole game, JJ. You don't have control over the whole quarter. You have control over that one play, right? And what you can do on that one play. And if you do that over and over and over again, you're going to be very successful.
Well, how do you measure success then? What is your measure of success? Just the process.
So like
it is the process.
Yeah.
That
so
is the
let's
success.
say you in your analogy, you're in a play. They come around. They ran the play for you. You come around. You had to open shot and you missed it. Right.
Happened last night at the end of the third quarter.
Okay. So let's say that's the play. As long as you went, I missed it because it's a successful moment. I missed it because and that sentence can't end with I suck or I'm at the end of my career. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. It's my elbow wasn't in. I was off balance. For a moment, I looked over here. The guy distracted me from over here. Or to be honest, I started thinking, what if I miss? That's powerless thinking, right? So as long as you thought that, it was a successful moment because that's not going to continue,
I missed the shot because I didn't get the ball to my shot pocket. That was the reason.
What happened? What did you say?
I didn't get the ball to my shot pocket. That was why I missed the shot. You are making essentially the sequel to Unbreakable and Split.
That's correct.
A movie called Glass.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about your creative process.
Yeah.
When you have an idea, how does that go from idea to a script to a screenplay, whatever?
Yeah.
To a finished product. What is the things you could, those puzzle pieces?
Yeah. From
like A to B to C.
Well, for me, and I have a fairly unusual path because I'm very isolated. I do everything in Philadelphia. I'm my own guy. I don't write for anybody. I make up my own stories. The ideas come in my head, and if one starts to become sticky like a snowball, it starts to pick up. Ooh, that's a cool idea. It stuck with me. Ooh, if I had that character, that, and then I'm hanging out with JJ, and he said something. Wow, that could be great. And when I start to have that feeling, when everything is sticking to this idea, then it starts to go, all right, let me get a notebook. Like notebook's the first phase. Get a notebook. Then I start listing ideas, and then when I open myself up and go, I'm gonna make the movie, this XYZ movie about a basketball team, whatever, and it starts to fill up the notebook, and then again, it's always about getting into the right emotional headspace. I'll write so many notes that I'm like, this is amazing. I have like 150 ideas for this one story. So it's basically like tricking yourself into an emotional confidence. All right, I'm gonna outline it. All right, then you outline it. And because its outline is just an outline, you can move a scene. Wow, that section doesn't work, or well, that seems redundant, or whatever. You start to get the outline is basically the bones, the structure, right? And essentially, that would be more like the coach, laying out how you're going to play a particular team. What is the game plan? So for a movie, the bone structure is almost everything, because unlike literature, or even plays for that matter, the audience just sees the bones. Girl wants guy, girl gets guy, girl loses guy, girl gets guy again, whatever, like that kind of thing. The romantic comedy bones or whatever it is, they can feel it, and then everything sticks to those bones. What are the bones of how to tell an original story? How can you do it in a new way? So that the outline is really important for me. And then I start writing the screenplay once I have a really detailed outline for me. This is my process. And the script writing takes about 6 months, to do that. And then I go to pre-production. I storyboard everything. So I draw every shot out of the movies, of the entire movie. Every shot, how I'm going to shoot it, exactly that way. I just came from a location scout where I was telling them there's 14 shots and this is how we're going to do it. You're going to go left to right with every camera move. The last shot's going to stop over here. And everyone asked me questions and what equipment we're going to need, because you can go get the exact equipment for the exact shots that I have. And then we go and shoot the movie, which takes a few months. And then post-production is editing and music and sound effects. And that takes a long time. And for me, I take a long time with that. Now you can do it super fast, but I don't do that. I take a long time. And then I go promote the movie. And since they promote the movies on me, I have to do the world tours. I have to do the things, and which I enjoy. And it's a very gregarious moment of the cycle. So I'm with people and we're at parties and, you're on the talk shows and podcasts and you're doing everything. And then by that time, I don't want to talk to anybody. And I go back to being alone in a room and I start writing again. And I do that cycle over and over and over.
So your motivation then, is it to make something? Is it success? Is it money? What is the core motivation of why you do what you do?
That's a great question. And I'm just going to be totally honest. It's something that I've been struggling with. I think that people that are driven and that have a lot of success sometimes aren't driven by the healthiest things,
Yeah.
Even that achieve great things that help everybody. It could be driven by, I want to prove something to people, or I want to be accepted or loved or appreciated or seen, right? And those things are definitely there for me, but I genuinely have another part of me, which is I want, if I could close my eyes and say, what's a perfect movie, that I've honored those characters, that those characters were given a full sense of, they became real, and so the audience can really see themselves in those characters. And I do genre movies, but hopefully they're really disguises for dramas and character pieces. And so that's really my dream. And it reminded me of something I told you guys and how important it is. I said, you guys, what you show us is you're basically a mini movie, and your life kind of condensed into these 2 hours. You start with all potential, and then random things happen to you. There's struggles, there's things there's villains, there's everything you can imagine. And we see this kind of non-scripted 2-hour version of life every time you guys get on the court. And when you tell me, like, JJ hits the shot, you tell me there's greatness in me. And I walk away from that feeling like, yeah, I recognize that greatness in me. I'm not saying you, JJ. I know you're very sensitive. So the team feels like they lose a big lead and they lose the game. You remind me that I said this to you guys because you had just lost the LA thing. I went home reminding myself that there's a part of me that isn't special, that can be powerless. You reminded me of that because that's what you were feeling. And I'm not saying that to make you guys feel bad. That's what happens. That's how powerful you guys are as a representative of our city, and we are you in that game, right? So tell us what version of us you want to be. So you guys are training to say. And so it's really that Eagles parade, the 2 million people that came out, they were saying we are resilient. It's not like just a sporting event. It's actually part of us, right. What the Eagles did for our city and what you guys do.
I go back and forth on my own motivations at times, because I think as you get older, your motivation at 7 or 8 years old when you first pick up a basketball, it changes at 12, it changes at 15. I went through a very dark period at Duke where I wasn't sure why I was playing basketball and what my motivations were. Then you have success, maybe you make money. I think there's a lot of people that are motivated by negativity, so they want to prove people wrong. My underlying motivation, I think, is just I love the game and I love competing and I love kind of testing myself and trying to win, But there's that underlying part about proving people wrong that you just mentioned. And at times you do feel like almost vindicated, like I've done it. Did you have that feeling at all with The Visit and Split?
Well, again, that's a dangerous.
It is.
That's dangerous. Because
I'm saying it's underlying. Like it's not the core motivation.
Yes.
It's not something that I even want to admit at times.
Yes.
But occasionally you're like, yeah, I proved them wrong. I had this conversation with my dad last night after the game. We were having a bite to eat after the game, and he was saying to me, like, can you even comprehend like where you at in your career? You still have years left, hopefully, and you've proven everyone wrong. And I was like, well, I have, but at the same time, like, I don't know that that's healthy.
Yeah, it's not, because it's, again, proving everyone wrong. That statement is already talking about the things you have no control over. So you went from powerful to not powerful again, you know? And when you achieve something, and the universe allowed you to achieve that, you come to this young team, and I believe you're going to make the playoffs. And you've made the playoffs a ton, right?
Yeah, I have a buddy who listens to the podcast on a regular basis, and he loves to point out the fact that I always mention the fact that I've made the playoffs every year of my career.
Yeah. Oh, it's a thing. Oh, well,
yeah, I'm 11 for 11, and hopefully this year will be 12 for 12.
You're going to be 12 for 12. And that's super unhealthy, by the way. And so, what you want to be is like, you know, the things we were talking about, the puzzle piece, the humility of how you guys are building this playoff team that's happening right here. You guys are super dangerous right now. Why you guys are super dangerous is because you guys are humble. And you're going, wow, we have a lot to work on, and we're working on it every moment. And your energy is in exactly the right place. The tricky part's going to be when you're winning consistently, and you start to think about those other things. Wow, we're great. Wow, everyone's saying we might go deep into the playoffs. Those kind of, now the energy, the young guys, everyone's energy is going to go out, and now you're going to be in the wrong place. And so when we start talking about things of like, do you feel vindicated and all, there's no way to feel that way if you're healthy, because I know I'm going to go back to the editing room and I will be challenged today. And there's something wrong with the scene. Figure it out. And that has nothing to do with whether people think I'm a genius or think I'm an idiot or whatever. Just concentrate on that. Figure it out. Everything else is going to work itself out if you just figure that out. Figure out that scene. In my world, figure out what's the best. Why is this not representing the character the right way? Just figure that out. Don't worry about anything else, because you have no power over those other things. And in your case, it's, you know, all the things we talked about, come around that pick, and where did you plant properly? Where's your, you know, all the things that you think about when you go through it. So yeah, so even that I've learned to think about it, to catch myself. When your dad says that, because my dad says the same thing, you know.
Well, I don't buy into it.
No, I know.
But
our fathers are supposed to do that. My dad, and you go to his house, he has magazine covers with me, like on plaques and things in his house. I'm like, Dad, that's not. We should talk about the movies I made, you know, as opposed to like, you know, how much money and all that stuff.
I think a challenge that I have in my life is that I'm addicted to information. And so I like to read things. I like to know things. I like to know stats, like the first quarter stat, you know, and that can get me in trouble because then I'm putting things into my mind as it relates to, you know, my own play or my own performance. And so much of an athlete's career becomes a narrative. And I think that's where I have to like intentionally block things out, because I don't want to create a narrative that becomes essentially self-perpetuating. And you see narratives all the time with athletes. It's why we have an MVP. It's why we have an MVP. The MVP story is so much of a narrative as it is, more so than just like looking at, you know, advanced stats on a piece of paper. But you know, a narrative could be, well, this guy struggles in the playoffs, or this guy can't win the big one. And I think that becomes a challenge for an athlete to defeat that sort of self-perpetuating narrative.
Yeah, again, when we talk about narratives, you're already talking about a big picture universal. That's how the universe, and I don't want to sound too fruity here, keep saying
you're
universe.
You're not.
But how the universe allows you to grow is none of your frickin' business. So that narrative of you're supposed to lose 3 times in the finals, so then you win the next 3, you know, that's not in you concentrate on that play at that moment, and you concentrate on your practice and what you have control of. It's all going to work out. You're going to get another opportunity to do those things that you've been concentrating on. Wherever you put your energy in, that's what's going to come back to you. So ironically, if you start thinking about, I want people to like me, what you're really concentrating on is I'm not sure about myself, and I'm feeling not so great about myself. And so the universe will be like, oh, you're not feeling great about yourself? I'll give you more of that. That's what you're concentrating on. So I'll give you plenty more of that. And you'll be like, God, and then I got this happen, and then that happened, and you know, where you put your energy. So it's the narrative in and of itself. If LeBron doesn't make that block against the backboard, the narrative of his entire career changes, flips. I could almost argue 180 if he doesn't make that block. So Did he have any control over that? Yes, only that he ran as fast as he could down the court and didn't give up on that play and blocked that block at that critical moment and turned the game, right? That's what he had control over. And guess what? His narrative went one of the greats of all time. It could have been a different narrative if he didn't make that block.
It could have been a different narrative if Draymond didn't kick him in the balls.
That's not in his control. That's not in his control. What Draymond does, don't let Draymond get you. That's why Draymond's great, right? He keeps making you think about things that you don't have control over.
Right. You're right. You're right.
He's a mental assassin, that dude.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about wearing headphones because I was thinking about that on the way up because that I don't allow headphones on my sets.
You're talking about athletes, like as they enter the arena or on the court warm-ups. Why is that?
So when you wear I don't allow headsets on my films for the actors, and I'll tell you why. Because you're borrowing the emotion from, let's say, a sad music, and an actor's borrowing that emotion. They get hyped up, they take the thing off, they come onto the set, and they do the first take, and they're emotional. Then I say, hey, you know what? She wouldn't do that. Can you kind of do it with a little anger and all stuff? Suddenly, they've lost that place that they were at from that other artist. And they're fragile. I find them more brittle, less pliable when they didn't conjure that emotion themselves and they borrowed it from someone else. I find those people brittle, right? I can't move them where I want as the coach. And so whenever I see athletes with their headphones on and all that stuff, I feel similarly. You're borrowing from Jay-Z or Drake or whoever you're listening to, and you're going to be hyped for a bit. But the first time Draymond kicks you in the balls, or the bad referee calls you on something, or you get elbowed and he didn't see it, what happened to Jay-Z? Where's Jay-Z? You going to go run and put Jay-Z's music back on and try to get hyped again? No, you needed to learn yourself how to control that emotion. If it was you that created that emotion, right? That came from, I've practiced in this manner, I am here, I know what to focus in on. When Draymond kicks you or that happens or the referee does that, it won't affect you, and that you go right back to it and you'll be stronger for it. And, look, maybe that's why your first quarters are amazing. I find players are more emotionally fragile now than, let's say, in the Jordan era and things like that. And, there's many, many reasons for that, culturally.
Yes, there are. And I don't think it's just music. I
no,
think
it's not. No.
Social media is
social media.
There's
everyone's concentrating on something other than the thing that they have control over. But it's a really interesting thing. I
love the idea of just mastering your emotion, though, and not, basically creating an artificial emotion. Mm-hmm. It's a very hard thing to do.
Yes, it is.
And it's a very hard thing for 20-year-olds and 22-year-olds to do.
But these are not only 22-year-olds.
I've done this for a long time, and I'm still figuring that part of it out.
Yeah.
I don't listen to music before the game, but
understood.
Did you know like Migos, like Quavo? Do you know who that is? Okay. I just was going to give myself a shout out. There's a song called Ice Tray, and they say Splash on the Wrist, Jay Redick, and it was playing in the locker room the other day. Yeah, Splash on the Wrist, Jay Redick.
But yeah, for me, the things we're talking about are, if you guys are the best athletes in the world, and you are, this is part of your job to learn how to control your emotions against the other greatest players in the world. That is the job. I'm not saying any 20-year-olds. I'm saying these exceptional 20-year-olds that have been chosen for this because they have creativity and the physicality to do things that others can't. One more component of that is the concentrating on the emotion.
How do we do that, though? That's the question, because I agree with you completely, and I've said this a million times, but like the mental, emotional side of professional sports is the great separator to me.
Yes, it is.
It's why LeBron is LeBron. He's obviously got great physical skills, but like he's mentally and emotionally, he's so powerful.
Yes.
For a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old, like how do you practice that? Do you see a psychologist? Do you what is the means to achieve that?
I do think this is an undervalued part of all aspects of our society, whether it's when non-athletes, it's kids in school, in workplace, all of that stuff. I think we don't think about this at all. We're very passive in regards to how we think about our emotions and how do we control it. We just let the world happen to us. And as I said, most of the time we're thinking about it in not a healthy way, you know? But I do feel like, that's why I actually came to talk to you guys, was to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing from our team. And I know that players have come up to me, including yourself, and said really kind things about what I said but it was really just me throwing a mirror up and saying, are you aware you're doing this? You're thinking like this. You're emotionally in this place, Ben or Joel or TJ or whoever I was talking to at the time. And I do think it's an important part. You're my team, so I want you guys to be thinking about it. But I do think all athletes should think about that as well.
This has been awesome. I really appreciate your time, Knight, and I'll see you at a game soon, man. This is great.
Thank you for having me on. It's such a pleasure.
That's it for today's show. A couple quick things before we go. The NBA season is heating up, so check out the Ringer NBA show, which is now 5 days a week, as well as all the great basketball coverage over at theringer.com. If you have suggestions about the show, you can reach out to me on Twitter at JJRedick, JJREDICK. We'll be back next week. Until then, if you enjoyed it, make sure to give us a rating and review over at Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening. All right, thanks again for listening to the pod. If you have an extra minute, please go to earsurvey.com. That's EARSURVEY, earsurvey.com, to take a very short anonymous survey about today's episode. It would be a big help to the show, and I'd appreciate it. Again, that's earsurvey.com for the quick survey to help the show.